Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. My name is JessiMilestone, and Age of Information is dead. Sorry, hate to break it to you for all those out there who love objectivity, but it is dead. Watched it die, and it doesn't show any signs of coming back anytime soon. So what does that mean, and why are we talking about it? Well, we're talking about it because I made a video called Why I Was Wrong About the World, and then a bunch of people wanted to chime in to let me know why I'm still wrong about the world. And the one interesting recurring thing that came out of that was that a bunch of people took huge offense to the idea that my reality, your reality, we kind of operate under different rules, and if my rules work for me and your rules work for you, who cares? Well, that just can't be, Jesse, because there's one reality, and it includes everything and everyone and all the objective rules inside it, so your rules can't possibly be different than my rules, because these are the objective truths of the universe. Hate to break it to you, but reality also includes all things that are subjective as well, but we'll get back to that. Because the thing I wanted to do instantly was just laugh at everybody for this absurdly naive perspective. And then I got another piece of advice, some feedback from a friend who engages with me on a lot of these things a lot of the time, who suggested that maybe I might want to slow down just a pinch and connect a few more dots so that these things sounded like thoughts and not just crazy ramblings. Fair point, friend. Fair point, well made. So here we are, connecting some dots, because I have a sequel to Why I Was Wrong About the World that I'm very interested in sharing with all of you, but I think it's really important that you understand where I'm coming from and what my operational definitions are before we do that. So first, I guess second, because I already said the thing about subjectivity. My second, and kind of dovetailing off that point, reality includes all the things that are true and all the things that are lies. And so what do these objective truths matter? Well, they only matter insofar as we have access to them. So what happens when the majority of the population does not have access to a particular truth? Well, then we live in an era where we jail a bunch of people because they believe that the Earth is not the center of the universe and that we revolve around the sun. Crackpot. Cockamamie, stay in your house forever, Galileo, for such nonsense and trying to convince the public of such monstrous things. That was a fact. That was a fucking scientific fact of the time. Unshakable fact. And then our understanding of science expanded. And that unshakable scientific fact was not so unshakable anymore. And naive is definitely the word I would use for anybody who thinks that in those few hundred years since then that we have so drastically deepened our understanding and practice of science and the scientific method that there just aren't big paradigm shifting, perspective changing discoveries left to be made in the field of science. That's absurd. Like, saying it out loud, you can hear how absurd that is, right? And if not, I may not be able to draw big enough dots for you to see the connections. But I digress. So in order to understand this and why it's all relevant in the title of the video, the way the age of information is over, what does that all mean? Well, it means that for the past several hundred years, information was the primary way in which we liked to know things, and that's no longer. Know things. Well, to get more into this, we kind of need to do a little scraping the surface of epistemology here. All right, epistemology, if you're not familiar, is the theory of knowledge, aka the study of how we know the things that we know. And you separate all different fields, and once you do that, there's only really two ways of knowing where we use empirical methods, and that's math and science. And science, we have applied all these empirical and quantitative ways of knowing because it's very difficult to actually know and understand science quantitatively, and there are many qualitative and arguably wrong ways of looking at it and approaching it. And so if we don't superimpose an empirical way of knowing on our scientific world around us, we will never glean this factual information from it. As opposed to math, which had some pretty unshakable rules and remains fairly unchanged, wildly consistent. So in terms of your objective truths, math is the one. Math is the one that no matter what species you are, what level of intelligence you are, whether it's in nature or in the classroom, it's pretty much working the same way. But what happens if we go, right, so we make the leap from math and science just over to history. History is a fairly objective form of knowing, right? You would think so. And yet we have that adage, history is written by the victors for a reason. And the simple truth is that even if we capture an historic event, picture perfect quality, we're not capturing the experience of every single person that went into that, of every different faction and opinion and action and reaction that happened as a result of a major event like that. And so history right there does not, no matter how good of an historical record we have, history does not encapsulate the entirety of objective truths. And then bump onto literature. What is good literature? What is objectively good literature? You could put a few professors in a room and watch them kill each other over that subject in a matter of minutes. So where does this objective truth factor into any of our societal practices about how we do this, especially when even empirical fields like science are expanding rapidly every day? Put yourself in the shoes of those people. Imagine that's today. How many truths do we hold on to as unshakable fact that could be shaken loose in a simple matter of moments by a new discovery, by a new perception shift, by an access to something in science that we didn't previously have access to before? Just over 100 years ago, we didn't know what quantum mechanics were. Now we have working scientific theories about quantum consciousness, but more on that later. So where do these objective truths actually exist? Well, yeah, they do exist in that reality y'all are talking about. This one big fat reality that encompasses all the things. I agree. I buy into one big fat reality that encompasses everything that is, was, and ever will be. It's all of it. It's everything. Reality is all the things. Now here's the kicker. Our bodies, our brains, we can't hope to ever know all those things or process or even comprehend what that means. We drive ourselves crazy trying to understand, the concept of zero versus a million versus a billion versus a trillion, and then back and infinitely large and infinitely small. We struggle with just moving that size around to large enough and small enough of levels. So how do we think we as any single individual is going to ever understand all of that? What is, again, going back to the previous example, what bearing do these objective truths have on our life if we have no access to them whatsoever? Just take planet Earth. Forget the future even. Just take planet Earth right now. Everything that happened. Fuck everything that happened. Just right now. Planet Earth right now, you could take everything that every single human being on planet Earth knows right now, put it in a vat, and we still wouldn't know everything that is going on our planet right now. We still wouldn't know all of the mysteries and secrets that there were to know about our planet right now. And if we don't even have access to the objective truth of our immediate existence, what does it matter? The only truth that matters is the one that you yourself have access to, whether or not it's objectively true. And you will live and die based on those rules, whether or not they're objectively true. And so in an age now where we have so much information, where we are oversaturated with information, and it is almost impossible in certain cases to determine which information is factual and which is wholly specious, yes, we all are living in actually functionally, you could just say, different subsets of reality. Subsets of reality that are so vastly different than one another that there is a shockingly little amount of overlap in spite of the fact that we are all still human beings living on planet Earth. That is what I mean when I say my reality, your reality, etc. I'm just talking about the parts of reality we have access to and more pointedly accept. Because if I accept a part of reality that you don't, or you accept a part that I don't, that now makes we live in different operational definitions of reality. So, yeah, it's take scientists in the woods, right? Scientists tool around a forest, and one of them goes, this strange object I have encountered, it is clearly wood. It's definitely just some wood. Because it's wood, everything that I can see about it and measure about it and do anything scientific about it shows me for sure this is wood. And another scientist goes, this thing that we're dealing with is clearly leaves. Because everything that I can see and measure and observe and look at its molecular structure in a lab tells me with beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is leaves. So leaves, a bunch of leaves right here. And then a third scientist goes, guys, you were all wrong. This thing is clearly made of birds' nests. There's birds' nests all over it. Right here, the structure, clear birds' nests. All I can see are these birds' nests. This bird nest right in front of me. I see this bird nest. All I see is bird nest. They're the feathers. They're little baby birds. This thing is a bird's nest. This is made of bird nest. And nobody can stand back far enough to see that it's a tree. It's all of those things. But they're all wrong because they all had an objective truth. The objective truth they themselves were observing was correct and accurate. But simply because they did not have access to the entire picture, they are all wrong. They're all doing the same damn thing, living in a completely different reality, a completely different understanding of what that objective truth is, and none of them have access to the true one. There's another fun lesson in here, by the way, about how instead of all waving our puzzle pieces around going, guys, my puzzle piece obviously has the best information on it, that if we all sat down and put our puzzle pieces together, we all would have a better picture of reality rather than just fighting over, clearly mine is the right one and you can go die. Okay. So, so we're discussing all of this. This is all perception. This is through a scientific lens. Now throw feelings, just for a minute, throw feelings onto this fire and what the fuck happens? Well, I can tell you, guys, y'all know, this is no secret, that I'm a very emotional and emotive person. All right, what may come as a surprise to some of you is that very few of you have ever actually seen me in my real emotional life. That this is just the way I am. I am this emotive and expressive that while I'm at a fairly even keel of feelings, this is how my information comes out. So you can imagine how off the rails I can get when my feelings start going off the rails too. I have had times, especially when I've been dealing with higher levels of stress and distress in my life, I have had times where I've had a conversation with a friend that goes a little sideways, you get into a fight, argument, and I've walked away from that fight going, man, why is my friend being such a jerk? They're being such an asshole. They're not listening to anything I'm saying. They're being so obstinate. They're being so rude. They're being so what the fuck? And I'm pissed. And I'm ready to burn it down. I have to stop I'm gonna put the reins. I'll be like, Jesse, don't stop. You don't want to fight with them. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. You don't want to pick a fight right now. And stop myself from doing that and then sit. And then sometimes I'll sit, and an hour or two later, I'll suddenly be taking a shit and reflecting and go, huh. I think maybe I was the one that was wrong, about the whole thing. I think maybe if I had just not been an asshole here, and here, none of this would have actually happened. Wild. And that's in the moment, I would swear to you up, down, left, right, center, and give you steel trap logic why I was definitely right. And in a matter of a couple of hours, because my emotional life changed, the access to perception that I had also changed. Therefore, all of my objective truths changed along with it. Because those feelings of anger, fear, those distress feelings, those are very powerful motivators for us. And guess what? All of our most powerful political leaders know it too, which is one of the reasons this stuff is so imperative. Look around. Have you tried to tell somebody about your personal experience only to have them tell you why that's absolutely wrong because they read these politics and this, that, and the other that tells them otherwise? Most of us have had that experience at this point in this day and age, unless you're very fortunate to just surround yourself with people who all agree with you. Or maybe you're unfortunate in that circumstance. Depends on how you like to live your life. See? It's all subjective. Maybe it's a great thing that no one ever disagrees with you and confirms everything you think. Maybe it's very limiting, actually, and hurting your point of view. I don't know. I don't live your life. Maybe it's one, maybe it's the other. But I digress. The point here is that we have all been manipulated by everybody who stands to gain power off of us to be afraid of anything that's different from us and to reject any reality that doesn't confirm our objective truths, whether or not those objective truths are actually real or hold any water. So that brings me back to the age of information. It died. It fell flat on its face, right? And so because, again, the people who manipulate information now understand how manipulable it is and how manipulable we are if we're only exposed to a certain facet of reality or another. And so information doesn't matter anymore. Information only mattered if we all agree that it matters. But now when for any fact that I have, you can show me 5 other very equally irrefutable facts that prove my facts wrong, then all that matters are the facts we all agree are the facts. That objectivity is second now to consensus. Consensus is our way of knowing now. Consensus is our primary preferred way of knowing. And again, that's tough. That's tough on us. That may suck for those of us who really like the empirical ways. It's hard to watch your definition of objectivity shift right under your feet. and become a lot more subjective than you originally thought it was. It's kind of like watching the definition of literally expand to include the definition of figuratively. And I do have a bone to pick about that one, but that's neither here nor there. The point, so is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Well, it is a thing. And again, yeah, it can suck sometimes if you're a very information-based person to find that this thing that makes so much sense to you that you can go out in your physical world and prove really doesn't mean anything to anyone anymore. But this also can set you free. Because you can now sit down and you can examine your world, your set of objective truths, and maybe find out that a few of those have actually passed their expiration date. That your life might get a lot interesting, a lot freer, and a lot happier if you could just let some of those things go. But I don't know. Don't take my advice. Spoilers, guys. Oh my God, this is terrible. I'm at the end of the video and I was like, I nailed it. And you don't even know I've been peeking at notes. And then I kicked my notebook down and I was like, what's the end of this video? Yeah, different realities, right? So circling back to that topic, like I was mentioning earlier, right? Different realities is simply just that. It's just the one that I live and have, the rules that make sense to me versus the rules that make sense to you. And for me, you know, looking at this concept of reality as this one objective thing is very silly because I experience multiple versions of it sometimes at the same time. It was very enlightening watching Everything Everywhere All at Once, by the way. I watched that movie and I was like, oh, I have language now to explain what I experience. It's one of the reasons I think I have always been very, very confident in making big life decisions, far more confident in that than making simple ones like what the fuck do I want to eat for dinner tonight? Because I can take a moment and sit in those big decisions and I can experience, physically feel, experience, see all of the permutations and consequences of the various decisions that I can make. And some years ago, even when I was growing up, this like, all right, well, you're just really good at, you know, risk analysis and planning and things like that, you know, or you're just making things up or you're just crazy. Well, it's hard to make things up to yourself. I mean, it's not impossible, I guess, but it's kind of hard. And I've gone through the am I crazy stress test quite a few times now already, and pretty sure that I'm not, at least not in those ways. The final part is quantum mechanics, right? There's now a scientific school of thought that says, or that has theories in it now about quantum consciousness. Science literally is backing up the thing that I'm saying right now. So if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, right, quantum mechanics, we're getting down to a submolecular level where particulates are operating on markedly similar frequencies. So that's one of the key things in the you know, when you get down to the quantum level is the rules of everything change. And those rules now apply very standardly to everything within that. And so there's a connection. There's an interconnectedness of all of the energies at the quantum level. And scientists believe that our brains were exempt from that because of the nature of the brain. It didn't have the environment that would support quantum waves moving at that speed. And science has proved that is not true, that there is actually no reason whatsoever why our brains aren't operating in that same collective quantum everything. And if that is the case, then there is no reason why that can't somehow connect to our consciousness with this idea of quantum consciousness. We've had an idea of collective consciousness for a long time. That's not new whatsoever. And the very scientists who are doing this research are positing things exactly like what I'm saying, that it maybe is not impossible that people are sometimes living in multiple permutations simultaneously, similar to the way a plant photosynthesizes. It sees all the possible paths for the energy particulate to take to get to the place that it needs to go, and then the particulate chooses the correct path a shocking number of times because it's operating in the quantum field in that way. So again, science. There is actual empirical science suggesting that the things that I'm saying are not just cockamamie bullshit, but are in fact real. And if you're still finding this all tough to swallow, there is a sequel coming where I'm going to dive into this in even more detail, more examples, more nuance, and help you find your way through this new way of knowing. So if you like this video, you know what to do. Engage, press that like button, press it to hell. Comment if you didn't like this video. Comment. Maybe people are interested in what you have to say too. That's the cool thing about this world. We can all have our opinions. And just everybody remember, practice makes wrong. It's a joke. No, there's new people here. They don't know that that's a joke. It's a joke. It's just a joke, guys. I believe in practice. Anyway, God Empress out.